Alright, today I'm going to be making a converted Tervigon slash Tyranid effects, and I'm going to be using the Moloch slash Trigon kit. Let's go ahead and get this opened up and get everything off the sprue. Alright, so I got most of the main bits out already, and now I need to go ahead and clean up all the mold lines and little sprue clips that are hanging in there. And for that, I have my favorite hobby knife. It is not sharp at all anymore. I love keeping this dull blade on here. I drag it across at an angle like this, and it cleans up the mold lines really well. Here, so you can see what I was just talking about. Come in right here, get the little sprue clip out, and then I go through and I smooth it at a 45-degree angle. Oop, there, I'll show you that one. And because this blade is dull and not too sharp, it doesn't make little scratches on the plastic like a sharp one would. That's why I keep this dull one around. There you go, nice and smooth. I'm going to go ahead and do that too. Alright, so I got everything cleaned up, and I started gluing together some of the main pieces. And make sure you get the chimneys lined up when you glue them together. I used a pair of tweezers to get them nice and lined up and get them all glued into place, and then go through with my hobby knife after and clean up any uneven surfaces and any excess glue. And here, let me get this in. So normally the Trigon, or Moloch, he sits on the ground like this, right? This model is going to be leaning forward like this, the torso going this way, and the tail is going to be trailing behind it. You see how that tail kind of just curves under and it looks kind of funny? We're going to need to bend this. People use hot water for that, or I like to use my heat gun. So I'll be using my heat gun, and I'm going to bend this tail just back a little bit this way. Alright, so I bent it a little bit, but then I was measuring the tail and looking at the whole model as a scale together, and I think that huge long tail just didn't fit for the model I'm making. So I decided to only use the first segment of the tail. And you can see I cut it a little bit right here at an angle, so that I chose the toxin sac tail because I'm going to just green stuff over this. Well, blue stuff is what I actually use, but it's the same kind of stuff. 2-part putty, it turns into really hard. This one gets hard within 5 minutes, and you can sand it within 5 minutes. Really good to work with, especially if you're trying to get things done in one night. And then there you go. Next, I'm going to be also working with the hands. I'm going to be cutting off the bone scythes and making fingers. I'm going to pull those fingers off and actually have them going out like a hand instead of a claw. They don't make monstrous creature rending claws, so you got to make them yourself. I know this model doesn't actually have that, but I think it would look badass on there. I've seen pictures of other models with it. Alright, I'm not going to be doing too much filming during the putty part because I don't want to get putty all over the camera. Alright, so I had to build up the bottom of the tail because it was already flat because it was going to sit flat on the base. And I used some putty to make the shell extend a little bit. Blended it with the rest of the body. And made a few extra little dimples because he's going to be rearing up more. I wanted to blend it better. Use some liquid green stuff to clean up the edges there. Once this all dries, I'm going to go ahead and sand it up a little bit. And I got my files too. Smooth it out and narrow it up a little bit. And there we have the tail. Right, now we're working on the hands. You can see that I've already cut off the scythes. And I've cut off the thumbs at the joint. I'm keeping the thumbs though because I'm going to rotate them inward to be a claw rather than a like that position. They're going to be like that. And I had to saw down the original fingers, file them down, and I'm going to be replacing them with these for fingers. These would be the fingertips rather than the claws and fingertips. I'm actually going to be using more putty to build up the last finger joint that's going to connect the two. Okay, I started to build up the fingers here with putty and liquid green stuff, and that'll be the base of the fingers that the claws will attach to. And I've done that on both hands already. Alright, so I started gluing the claws on to make fingers, and you can see how it looks so far. It's a little messed up right there on the tip, but I'm going to go ahead and clean that up afterwards. Need to put just one more coat of green stuff to help the fingertips merge with the claws a little bit better. But altogether it came out pretty well. Alright, went ahead and finished the hands, green stuff over the new fingertip joints. Came out looking really nice. Oh, and I cut off the elbows because I have to attach straight arms so they look more like an arm and less like a claw. There we go. And I also started on the feet. Feet need to be a little bit bigger because I'm using Hive Tyrant feet, and those alone are a little bit small in this body, so I'm beefing them up with extra feet and raising them up a little bit. The actual hoofs inside the middle of that raised up a little lot. Same thing here. I'm going to clean that up when it's finished drying. For the front arms, I've started to build them out now. I took 4 arms from the Mouse Scepter. I had some extra arms from that. And they were the ones beefy enough. I was going to try to use all extra Tyranid arms, but those are kind of scrawny compared to that. And they looked ridiculous, like some weird inverted Popeye arms. Anyway, so obviously you can see there's some cracks and joints there. I'm going to have to fill that in with putty, clean it up. But it's off to a good start. And those are some terrifying looking claws. It's going to be really awesome on this guy. Alright, so I started working on the torso some more. I glued the tail on. And then I started on the neck. I had to use putty to build out the neck because the neck needs to sit into a position that accommodates him sitting forward like this rather than perched up like that, like he usually is. So I built out the neck, and I used my sculpting tools to give it the Tyranid look. And I also filled in the backs. Oh, come on, focus. It's too bright to focus. You can kind of see the holes there that I made. There we go. See the ones on top. Anyway, I haven't finished the mouth yet because I don't like covering everything up because it'll make it difficult to paint later. And I haven't decided if I'm going to have a gaunt pouring out of his mouth. The feet have been touched up. Added claws to the back of them. And the hands are ready. Got them filled in. So we are almost ready to prime. Alright, so I touched this up a little bit. I used some liquid green stuff to finish up the support chimneys on him. I built out the legs a little more. They need to be a little bit bigger appropriately for him. Still got to clean those up a little more though. I used the extra Moloch head plates I've had, or sorry, Tervigon head plates that I've had to make the new knee plates. It gives them a much beefier look. It takes them another half inch off the ground. Alright, I've done one other modification. I've magnetized one of the hands, and I have a sword from a Demon Knight from the Grey Hunters, and I magnetized that guy, so he has that sword. And you're probably thinking, what the hell does this Tyranid need with a sword? This is the Reaper of Obliterax sword for the Tyranid army. I've had this bit around for a while, been meaning to figure out how I wanted to model it onto my Tyranid or my Tervigon, who sometimes wield it. So this is how I'll do it. If I decide to equip it, take it in my list, then I'll just presto, it's on him. I'm gonna paint it up on a red glowing scheme to make it match all my Tyranid weapons too. Alright, so everything's primed. You can see it looks a lot better now that it's primed. It's starting to match up, and it's going to continue to look better as you paint it. Got all the legs done, everything. And the hands especially look really nice. They came out really well. Look at that. And then I did up these scything talons because I'm not 100% sure if I'm going to do a second set of arms or not, but if I do, I might use these. I also have some other bits in the mail that I might use too. So I haven't completely decided yet if his socket, additional socket's going to be used or not, but I like to have something ready just in case I am going to use that. Then I went ahead and primed the sword black, because when I go to airbrush the power effects on it later, the black makes a much better base coat. As for the base, I've already gotten started. I went ahead and primed it black, and then when that was fully dry, I went ahead and used my texture paint, multicolor texture here. Comes out looking like dirt. You want to give that a good 10 minutes to dry at least, and then it'll give this nice sandy dirt rock-like texture. And there you go. That actually helps the layer paint get on there really well and provides a base coat for it too. So when you go to do your Steel Legion drab on the edges, it comes out really nice the first time and adheres really well. As for the top, it's going to help my basing material and my eggs I'm going to be making later stick on there really well. You can see I've taken notes on the base itself. Those are where the legs are going to be and where the tail dips down, so that when I go to start decorating this base, I won't interfere with the placement of them. Alright, let's get started. I'll be using khaki brown from Vallejo Air. So I got everything done, and you can actually notice over here I've started I'm making my own scatter dice again. I'm theming them to match my army. I always keep one painted differently though, so when I barrage, I roll 3. The different dice is the primary, and the other 2 flip off of it. But yeah, anyway, that's a little side project I'm working on at the same time here. Thought I might as well do it while I have the paint out. Anyway, everything's already second coated. This guy's over here drying. Out real nice. Don't worry about overspray. You're going to be cleaning that up in a little bit anyway. Alright, next we'll be working with Burnt Ember for the shell. This is another Vallejo Air color. Alright, now that we got that base down, we're going to go over it with corn red for the shell. This is the color I use for all of my high-ranking bugs, my leader bugs, my Hive Tyrant, obviously Tervigon or Trigon Prime or Barbed Hydral. They all get a red shell. It's like the commander or elite color that I use. Alright, so the sword, I also did a coat of corn red. What I'm going to do when this dries is I'm going to do a coat of Newland oil, let that dry, and then I'm going to start doing the glow effect on it by adding white to the corn red as I go. Alright, so I've added some white and did stripes on both sides. I'm going to add some more white. Alright, so I got it all coated up, the shell, with corn red. Cleaned up all the edges. I left some of the tinting there, I like it to be darker underneath where the shell meets. Oh, and I worked on the sword some more too. Give it a nice kind of little glow and shining effect. Edged it in white, centered in the glow effect with white. Did the gem red, the hilts, vintage gold kind of color. Alright, so next up we have to do the washes on the skin and the shell. For the shell, we're going to do Newland oil over the red, and for the skin wash, I have my own mix I made. And what it is several other paints. I'll show you them. Spehia Shade. Light brown. Paint thinner. And where's the last guy? Burnt Umber. There we go. So in the description, I'll have the exact mixture of these because I don't have it memorized, but basically the Spehia wash helps it to be more of a wash altogether and be runny, not pool and dry too fast. And the Burnt Umber, of course, gives it the color I like to darken up the skin. And the light brown takes it up just a notch so that it's not too dark. And then, of course, the paintbrush thinner helps when I mix all these paints not to overwhelm the wash effect. It brings it back to more of a wash texture. Alright, we're going to get started on the skin. So real quick, I'm going to show you how I do my wash effect for the skin. Just get some wash on the brush here, and just quickly blast the skin with it. Don't worry about doing all of it, because you don't want it to start drying before you do this part. A little makeup sponge, and just start brushing off the excess. And then it seeps nicely into the pits. It tints the flat surfaces. You're still not picking up all of it. And it gets a really nice shaded effect. Real leathery, kind of fleshy look to it. Alright, so I've shaded all the skin and the shell on all the pieces. And got some more work on the dice done. I've also shaded the sword. We're ready to paint the hilt when that dries. Next, I'm going to go through and do the highlights on the shell. First, we're going to use Evil Sun Scarlet. Alright, I've done all the highlighting on the shell now. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and get started on the final details. This is what I'll use for all the bones. Bone white from Game Color. And for the mouth parts and the fleshy bits like that, I always use Carrion Ariane from Game Color. Now, this one I'll do a red wash over. Makes it look a lot more fleshy and wet. And then this one I use Agrax Earth Shade over. Gives it a nice aged bone look, or dirty bone. Alright, need to get started on that. Alright, so got the mouth painted up. I haven't done the teeth in the mouth yet because the wash will get on there and it's pointless to do the teeth first. I have done some of the other spikes though. Once we finish for the bone, we're going to go with Agrax Earth Shade. And for the mouth, we're going to use Ball Red. I don't know the current name of this off the top of my head, but this is from my old technical set I had, so I still have a lot of these washes. And I like to use this on all the parts that are like mouths or flesh. Alright. So I've got all the shading done in the mouth right there. I use Agrax Earth Shade. And of course I use a lot to give it a lot of pop and definition with the teeth, but that of course darkened up the teeth. So I went ahead and highlighted with more bone white afterwards. I also highlighted all the major horns and tusk-like things with bone white on the edges. Next, I'm going to be doing the eyes. I'm going to be using Flash Gets Yellow is what I use for my eyes. I'll do a layer of that. Then I'll do Newland oil over it to help give it more definition on the edges. I'll re-highlight with Flash Gets Yellow. There he is. It's pretty freaking awesome looking, man. And then, I think I'm going to make another sword. I'd like how this one looks, but it doesn't look the best on him, obviously. He's a Tyranid. Alright, then next, to work on the base. Okay, as I previously mentioned, I masked off these areas because that's the points where he contacts the base, the feet, and the tail. Now I'm going to line the base with eggs, and for that I have 15, 12, and 10 millimeter balls. gonna just hot glue them down and make a little cluster. Is to take the liquid super glue with the brush. And we're just going to brush that directly onto the Elmer's. Okay, so I got all that done, and then I also touched it up with some more hot glue to add more tendrils and lines. Facing it. I did a layer of kitty litter, and then I did 3 more little rings going up to make a mound. I'm going to make it kind of like this is a nest. Okay, so I got the base primed. I primed the egg satin black, and I did all the rocks in gray. And what I did was I did black first, masked it off with some tape, and then hit it with gray. It's important that I do my rocks gray, because this is basically the final color they're going to be. I'm just going to wash them in Newland oil, and then seal them. And the eggs I'm going to do dramatically different colors, so I needed them to start black. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and do my Newland oil wash. Alright, I've gone over the base with Newland oil, and you can see in this ring here, I started to add some texture. I used Astrogranite. Alright, so I've got it recoated with the Strickland mud now. See, that gives it a nice, gritty, muddy texture. Alright, so I went ahead and did Airbrush Shade on the mud. I liked how it came out. Darkened it up a little bit, but didn't do too much like sometimes Newland oil does. And then I used burnt umber on the eggs themselves. Kind of dry brushed it on there. Mostly worried about the tendrils and the little vein looking bits. Okay, so I'm done with the eggs. What I did was I started off with just a generic burnt dark brown that I have for my drain paint. I dry brushed that around it. And then I dry brushed burnt umber from Vallejo Air onto the eggs, focusing on the tendrils, and a little bit onto the eggs. Then I dry brushed my khaki brown from Vallejo Air onto the eggs. I did 3 light coats of dry brushing on that, and got lighter and lighter as I got to the top of the eggs. And then I finished off with Game Color Bone White dry brushed on the tops of the eggs. And then I did Airbrush Shade. Now, the base is ready to be clear coated. And then once it's clear coated, I'm going to begin the water effects. Alright, so I got the base clear coated with matte. You can see with that mud texture, and even with the matte, it comes out pretty shiny. Which is going to be really nice for the water effect. Secret Weapons Realistic Water. I'm supposed to apply it just a little bit at a time, no more than 1/8 of an inch depth, and do multiple layers if you need to. And if you get little bubbles while you're working, you can just take an old brush and just kind of pull them to the edges, and then they'll pop. Alright, I'm going to get started on that now. For a day. I ended up putting a second coat after a couple hours. I could see that the first coat wasn't going to be enough, and the first coat was so thin that it actually started drying pretty quickly. So you can go a little thick, just make sure, like it said on the advice, on the instructions in that bottle, don't go more than 1/8 of an inch. And that's about what I've done here, is about 1/8 of an inch. And it's starting to turn out real well. I stuck some little grass bits inside of it too to make it like they're sticking out of the water. And don't pull it too high onto surrounding things, because it won't settle back down like water does. It'll stick to the sides, kind of like a putty or gel. See how it's kind of like up out of the water? And then you can see the edge where I had the tape. Looks pretty neat. It's a little bit higher, obviously, because it also got pushed up against the edge of the tape. But this part's easy to clean up. Once it's fully dry and hard, I'm going to go over with a sharp hobby knife, and I'm just going to trim it down to the layer of everything else. And there we go. We got a little swampy pit where the eggs are laid. And we're going to have this guy sitting over them. I'm going to go ahead and attach him to the base now. Okay, one step I did forget to mention is while the base was drying, I went ahead and clear coated the model until it's got a slight satiny sheen to it. But that'll help protect the paint job if it bumps into anything, if I drop it on accident, or anything. It just keeps it nice and protected, especially with a larger model like this. It's a really good idea to do stuff like that. And this is what I use. Now for this, you want to do, it's much better to do 2 to 3 quick coats, thin coats. You don't want to hold it over an area too long. Just really quickly, just brush, 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 brush. Or spray rather. And then let it dry, come back, do another coat. Don't try to do it all at once. Don't try to spray in one area too much, or you'll get a really high gloss effect. And since this is matte, it still will be glossy, but it'll look ripply, like a rippled gloss, and that just doesn't look good. If you do it right and you just do really thin coats, it comes out with just very slight sheen, very, very light. You can almost not even notice it, and it makes the model look really nice. And this model is basically done, this conversion. I'm just waiting for the water effects to dry completely. It'll probably be fully done in the morning, and then I'll go and I'll trim off all that excess right there. Alright, there you go. There's the completed model. Very beautiful conversion. It was very fun to work on, and thanks for watching the video. Hope you like it.